Manafa, who is from the Federation of Uganda Employers. Welcome, Grace and Shafi.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Sam.
Very good. Let me start with Shafi. We're discussing growth with jobs, and jobs are in your areas, FUE, Federation for Uganda Employers. Along the job front, let's start with you employers. What do you need, what do you require in terms of policy to help you get the kind of people that you need? Shafi.
Thank you, Samuel. You see, employers are consumers of workers, and before someone becomes ready to search for employment or to be employable, there is a process which includes, of course, education. And the manufacturers of these workers, which are the education institutions, also work with curriculums and so on and so forth.
That's true.
Now, we as employers would benefit a great deal if the policies that govern the production of the workers help to produce skilled laborers.
Okay.
I think that would be a very, very important.
You mean we are short of skilled laborers, Shafi?
Well, we have quite a number of skilled laborers, but what happens in actual practice is you get these good graduates, some of them with very good class degrees, but when you give them the jobs, they cannot even perform the basics at the workplace. So an employer has to again invest in on-job training before this worker can actually engage and do something at the job. Right now there's a discussion going on with the Ministry of Labour, and we're working a great deal with the ILO and the UNDP to kind of restructure the curriculum such that we are talking about the 70-30, where 70% should be actually training on the job, and then 30% in
from
the
school.
lecture theatres. But right now it's almost 90% and 10%. We have a requirement. We have a requirement by the universities for graduates to, as part of fulfilling the requirement, for them to be attached to a job. But we need to actually have more of the job training on job attachment, up to a level of maybe 70%, especially for those professions, for some high professions, and then we commit the 30% to the lecture theatres. Now we are doing an upside-down kind of arrangement.
Let me turn to Grace. Grace, yours is experiential here. You have been a long time in the corporate world, and you started a long time ago, but you also worked with the younger people. What did you see the difference in terms of job ethic and job doing between people, your generation, and the younger people? What's your view on the work, the way these two groups work, so that it helps us inform us on how to go forward?
Thank you, Sam, and good afternoon, viewers. A lot has been said around work ethic today versus work ethic yesterday. So I think that at the time I joined the job market, or people my age joined the job market, we had very few skilled Ugandans. We had a market where there were so many expatriates, and within the corporate space you had many expatriates, and these people came from, whether it was Kenya, Zimbabwe, Southern Africa, the UK, the Asias, and really their mandate at the time, and I guess whether it was whichever regulator mandated them, that they had to transfer skills. So skills transfer was big. So even as they got work permits, these particular expatriates, they were told, okay, in 4 or 5 years' time, we expect a Ugandan to take over. So at that time you came out of university and joined a corporate, and you had a very experienced and skilled boss, expatriate boss already. So that was a unique opportunity for you, one, to get skills and to understudy these people and get into the skills. There was also, in terms of quality, at that time Makerere was churning out 200 graduates only. So there was just a very finite number of graduates. And they could be 10. Right now, after the liberalization of the education sector, I mean, just the floodgates were thousands came out, and one of the downsides, it's a good policy, opened up more universities, but one of the downsides was the quality, the mass production of graduates. Also, you found that where we had polytechnics which transferred real skills, hands-on skills, whether it was electricals, whether it was plumbing, whether it was carpentry, whether it was within the agriculture sector, extension workers, polytechnics tended to bring out people who were hands-on. You know, whether it was, if you've got an engineer from a polytechnic from Chambogo,
I remember.
They were all, the criticism that Makerere got was that the Chambogo people were better, or the Nkozi teacher was better than the Makerere. So I think this liberalization just mass created, and when you mass create, quality suffers. So then you found that the graduate who was being churned out was doing very well academically, but was not astute to work, was not ready to work.
So we have a situation here, Grace and Shafi. So now we are here, and we're looking for solutions, and we have all these people. All these people have been churned out, the thousands. They want jobs, but they're not ready. What can we do? Shafi, let me start with you. What is the solution to? They are here now.
Well, there is something that we can do, and I think it all starts with the willingness for us employers to do something, because at the end of the day, it is us that eventually take up. Yes. Now, employers are now accustomed to organizing internships for these graduates as part of the requirement for them to graduate. But we still have to do a lot of awareness and sensitization for them to take these graduates to kind of offer them workspaces, what we call workspaces.
But there are too many, Shafi, and the space is just organically.
Yeah, you see, these same many graduates today are the same number of graduates that we offer internships.
Okay.
So if we have a program that deliberately helps to help to skill these people, that will be part of addressing the problem. Now, of course, I think this is starting somewhere, somehow. I don't know if you've heard about the graduate volunteer scheme.
Yes, I have.
Yes. The first phase was able to recruit about 120. Of course, that's a drop in the ocean.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
But it is important to start. And I can tell you that even for these 120, the road was not that smooth. Employers were resistant. What is in it for us? Yet at the end of the day, we are the ones who actually want these people skilled, but we don't want somehow to participate in their skilling. But once we get on the road with these skilling programs, I can bet you that 2 years, 5 years down the road, the situation will be much
These are graduates. I had a conversation with someone who said that reskilling, even if you have a degree, you can go back and study plumbing.
Yes.
You can go back and study, not study really, but learn how to lay tiles, because the real estate sector is growing, and the laying of tiles is not for everybody. Is that something you subscribe to?
Well, today there are some two members of ours, these are employers.
Yes.
But I can tell you that if you present them a university graduate and someone who has gone through the vocational institutes, they would actually, I can bet you 100% they'll take the guy from the vocational skills. What does that mean? That means that at the end of the day, employers need people who are going to offer them something, who can do the actual stuff. But you get graduates who are so-called white-collar graduates with their degrees, yes. And once you give them a job, the engineers, they want to get down and get dirty. But guys who are into the vocational have no business in the white-collar stuff, and they actually want to get dirty because they know that's where the real work is.
But Shafi, we still have these guys here who are engineers who don't want to get dirty. Are we at loss, Grace, what do you think? Are we at loss? Do we have the trouble in our hands and say, but we are finished?
I think one really interesting possibility out there is when you look at corporate social responsibility, I mean, every big company is into something. They're either doing a cancer thing or eyesight, it's health related or something, let's help disabled people or differently abled people. A good focus for corporates now should be on vocational skilling.
Reskilling.
Yes, reskilling people and funding as part of their corporate social responsibility, looking at this area of job creation, youth unemployment, and saying, let us put money, some of this corporate responsibility money, towards getting these people skilled, towards vocational skilling.
Now, these guys are profit makers, Grace. So, and I want to go back to the core creator, who is government in this case. What's government's role? I'm still with you, Grace.
Well, government would have to partner with people with skills. So a lot of the time why government programs might not be as successful as they are is you have to get in people who have the need, people who understand the landscape, to then partner with government and say, okay, so how do we address this? One of the things that comes to mind on what government can do around whether creating jobs or addressing the real need is, in, for example, a country like Israel, everyone has to, because of their security situation and being surrounded by all these hostile people, after a certain level, whether it's A level, you must go into the army and do 1 year or 2 years in the army. Nothing stops government putting a policy that says, like at the time when they were taking the children after in Essex Vac, you went to Chankwanzi for the political, awareness and what. Nothing stops government saying that for the USE students, you take off 8 months or whatever the time of the, I don't know that the vacation now is 6 months or 8 months, and go into a vocational skilling as a policy. So we know agriculture is our backbone. Take people to demonstration farms to learn about, get the whole agriculture thing, agriculture extension work. If it's plumbing that is the need, get people to do plumbing. If it's electricals, whatever it is, whatever vocational skills will create jobs, or where the corporates are saying we don't have skilled people. In that Essex vacation, or one of the university, the government-sponsored students, one of their, at the end of the semester, take them compulsory, go and learn some of these skills. As the corporates also do their corporate social responsibility and fund, because the corporates would then fund. They'll follow
a signal from government
and contribute towards these vocational skilling institutes. That is one way that you can partner with government to see how do we drive this forward. What are the skills that are needed in the oil and sector?
Absolutely,
yes. What are the skills needed from a vocational point of view? Why don't you then say, okay, we will have these vocational centers, and then get these corporates to, under corporate social responsibility, to fund those vocational institutes or particular courses that are hands-on, that are dealing. If it's we have so many people in the, whether it's a cosmetic field, hair salons and all that. Let's go into cosmetology, beauty products, whether it's manufacturing them or learning what to do, whether it's braiding hair. Just let's put a deliberate policy that gets our young people skilled.
Things cannot be just left to the private sector to rove about the way they choose.
Yeah, but it would be in consultation with the private sector, so that you're churning out people who the private sector who are needed. Yeah, so it would be a partnership where you advise each other. And I think that would go a long way. And yeah, it's good to fund cancer, it's good to fund, all these other things. But right now the headache for everyone is the youth unemployment.
Yes.
You need the youth to be employed. It's impacting our security. It's impacting, just how we interact.
Absolutely.
Because the youth are so many. We complain about borders and they are everywhere, but that's where they are trying to eke out a living. Yes. So what can you provide as an alternative? And then from a policy point of view, what can then government do? Because if everyone, once you get out of campus, once you've done your A-level, you took a year out to get a skill, a vocational skill, you should come out of campus, if you get to campus or whatever tertiary institution, should come out a job creator because you have had that sort of skill.
And the psych, I see that initially started with a diploma, and it worked me psychologically. When I worked with these degree people, I was 10 times better because I sort of looked at myself as, okay, I only have a diploma. I'm going to jump 10 times where they jump once. It works the psyche.
Absolutely.
And I remember many of my friends who came in with a diploma in journalism, many stayed. And we were competing with these master's holders, degree holders, and we survived DNA.
Yes. So the ethos of their strategy would be really around lending to the locals, to local businesses. Having said that, you find that locally owned banks, especially if the proprietors of the banks are entrepreneurs, they have a different slant to business.
They have an affinity.
Yes, because the way a credit officer who has done business analyzes a business application, a credit application, is very different from an academic or someone who doesn't know the terrain in the market. So you find that in the banks where you have risk officers, the credit officers, the approving committee are entrepreneur, actually doing business, they look at business applications very differently. And like I mentioned the case of Kenya. I mean, when you saw how Equity Bank or KCB will look at a credit compared to a Barclays, Citi, Standard, it's a completely different. So you find that when they have that appreciation of business
in the local environment,
they will score a credit very differently from someone who doesn't have that foresight. So absolutely, commercial, there's still space for commercial banks to lend SMEs. The appetite is there, but now there's varying risk appetites. From the local, the wholly local, we have only one wholly local bank of the 25, but from the wholly local bank to the ones that are international focus. So these are, as you know, when you have the years where NPLs are high, when the non-performing
bad loans,
those are bad loans are high, everyone sort of backs off. But as things improve, so when the Sudanese started having their situation and fighting, we had a lot of NPAs, and it took some time to stabilize. Now we are pretty much over that. The NPAs are still high, but the arrow is pointing in the correct direction. And you notice that then credit, the willingness to lend is there. So, and then there's all other things that needed to be addressed, the loan foreclosure procedures, just getting that to be smoother. Because if a bank knows that we've lent some and some can't pay, but we can foreclose, they will be more willing to lend the sums of this world, whether it's your garage owners, whether it's your cleaning companies, that middle tier. But if the bank can foreclose easily and they don't have to go through 4 or 5 years before they can foreclose on a property because of the legal environment or the judiciary, then also the land registry situation, that is not in the hands of the bankers, it's in the hands of government, whether you're going to digitize the land registry, mobile collateral registries, all that helps, will address this problem of lending to SMEs, because they are very high risk lending, and that you tend to see that their cost of
a lot here, Grace, I see that depends on government. Let me turn to you, your thought before I ask a question.
Well, it is very difficult to divorce the concept of entrepreneurship when you're discussing youth unemployment. And of course, Uganda is one of the most enterprising.
That record there.
Yes, that record there. But the rate at which we create these business ideas and and businesses is the same rate.
Almost I wish they die.
Out. Yes. So what does that point to? Of course, it points to a couple of things, but one of them is the cost of capital. And that is one area where government should really come in, whatever it is. I'm not a financial expert, but whatever it is that government can do to make the cost of capital cheaper, government should do. Then thirdly, there's a new dynamic in this area of youth employment, and still I think government can do something to enhance
that.
This is the opportunity we see in externalization of labor.
Okay.
Of course, we are talking. This
That
discussion
is export of labor.
Yes, the discussion is about our economy.
Yes,
but
that money comes back.
Absolutely.
So you are in league. Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. So when you travel this world, almost all the 5 continents, everywhere you go, you'll find 2 nationalities. You'll find Chinese and you'll find Filipinos. Now the Chinese is because of the pressure back home because of the population. But the Filipinos, it is because it is a deliberate government policy to negotiate bilateral agreements with individual countries for their people to go and work. Now what do those bilateral agreements do? What they do is that those bilaterals protect their people. Those people are protected under the local labor laws. If a Filipino is in Kampala working, and I've seen quite a number of them in Uganda, they are protected. So if our government also enhances these bilaterals and ensure that we have mechanism to keep track of our people, where are they going, how are they going,
protect them.
How do we ensure that they are their workplaces and everything. Once government does that, it will greatly improve on the issue of unemployment.
Very good. Let's move on to a neutral question for both from the employers and also the financial side. Is money the biggest problem, really? You just mentioned this, Shafi, there. Is money the biggest problem? All the other things policy can do to make sure jobs are available in this market. Let's start with you, Grace.
Well, money is usually the central
and here
issue.
I think cash.
Yeah, it's a central issue for businesses, because the number one reason business fail is poor cash flow.
True.
Yeah, so money is big, but there are other things that are enablers to doing business.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So whether it's your tax regime, whether it's the non-tariff barriers, the non-tax barriers, just the ease of doing business.
Yes.
How quickly can I register my company? How quickly can I get how quickly can I, once I register my business, get all my paperwork in place, then you navigate navigating the different taxes, because you have the central government taxes, then you have the local ones, the KCCA ones. There is also forming groups coming. One thing that we realize, and especially for economies, emerging market economies that have progressed by leaps and bounds, is that traders or business people are not going solo.
No.
They are forming groups to lobby. And that is something that is still nascent here. You don't have a strong lobby that furniture makers, and we have this strong business. Kasita, city traders,
demonstrate something.
That's a good start. So you just say, okay, umbrella bodies. So they are there, but now to work on their effectiveness, to lobby, whether it's for credit, whether it's for government support, whether it's for, if they're exporting, the markets they're exporting to lobby that can you please prioritize this particular road, because UNRWA, when UNRWA are planning their roads, what discussion is UNRWA having with these umbrella groups?
Nothing.
And would you blame UNRWA? Do you blame the umbrella group? As in, at which point do you come and say, let's make this particular road, let's give it priority because it's going to create more jobs?
So you are challenging the private sector here.
Yes, both sides, to say, when UNRWA is prioritizing their roads, where are you? As in, are you in that discussion? Why are they prioritizing a road to X, which has very limited, which has a smaller impact than a road to Y, which would have a bigger impact?
That's a good question.
So that is where you can't just put it with government, neither can you just put it with that have to work together now. When you come together as an umbrella group, those are the kind of discussions you need to think of having, as opposed to saying, let's come together so that we can fight KCCA not to lock us up. No, you're saying that
negative energy.
Yeah, let us see how do we come to the table early enough when the budget is being done. What amount of involvement? I know there's all sorts of think tanks, but your little umbrella group, how are you going to lobby? You know, you as SACCOs, you know, you're saying, okay, these SACCOs are everywhere.
Yes.
How do we harness that energy from SACCOs, and so that it's coordinated, you know, so that the SACCOs are funding this side that is producing and funding the other side that is creating a market.
Yes.
You know, and then in there saying, government, how do you help us? You know, these are the problems we are facing at this particular border post. You ask as the furniture people who are sending furniture into South Sudan, how does government then come and say, how do we get safe passage? And you see it happening in the developed economies. I mean, look at Trump's agenda on America First. They'll look after themselves. We'll try and put, you know, taxes on second-hand clothes. They will pull strings on AGOA. That's not unfair. That's just leveraging the power that you have.
Yeah, sort of interest first.
Absolutely.
On the employer side, Shafi, they have interest in getting the right kind of skills. And I just know that the jobs are not being availed as fast as they should. In fact, some of the employers shared jobs. Yeah. On your side, Shafi, what are some of the difficulties your members are dealing with? Forget the right kind of skills they need. We are now saying in creating new jobs or shedding jobs. What are the difficulties they're dealing with in this economy, and what might they want in terms of policy to enable them create more jobs and probably keep the ones they have not shed?
You see, the world of work is changing.
That's true.
And the future of work is changing so fast. Therefore, that means that we need to be so much innovative, not only with the employers, but we need to have staff. We need to employ people who are so creative. Now, besides the unskilled laborers or workers that we have in this country, we are experiencing another issue, another problem, and Grace touched a little bit upon it earlier. And you see, the word work ethics is so huge. It means so many things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now there is a trend which is emerging within our membership, and that is that as you employ these young people, some of them, well, they are accustomed to very lavish lifestyles.
What do you mean by that?
This guy has a new job. He has worked for 1 year, and he wants to spend 200,000 shillings in one weekend. They want to live in a very posh apartment. They want to drive a Benz, and they've worked for hardly 5 years. Now, what does that mean? That means that depending on the job this guy has and where he's working, they'll do everything possible to ensure that they supplement their income.
Yes.
And this is something which probably has not come out so loud, but it is. We know it. Our members are telling us that we know we have this thing. We have a council which is coming up, but we even don't know how to. We don't know what to even name it. But it is a big problem. And
as in one person doing multiple jobs.
It's about doing crafty thing. Crafty stuff.
Lack of integrity.
Absolutely. And when they dismiss these guys, they eventually go to the industrial court and they go to labor officer, and at the end of the day, the employer parts with a huge
compensation.
Absolutely. So that is another problem which actual employers are facing, and we've had quite a number of our members complaining about it.
But policy can't fix that. I'll go on.
Yes, policy can't fix that, but you see, policies are things that we either want to do or which we don't want to do.
Okay.
And those policies come from what happens from day to day lives.
Experiential.
So, as we think about things that we can do as things that government can do for us, it is also important to stare these problems that we're having on a day-to-day basis in the eye, so that we we think about solutions that we could actually put down to help.
And the summit is about solutions. I don't know whether that's a psychological, sociological issue or it's a policy issue, right. But we want to think. I kind of agree with what you're saying. The attitude of the younger workers.
That is where I was actually coming, because part of the cause of that behavior is an attitudinal issue.
Where does it come from?
The workers of today, besides the skills issue that we keep repeating all the time, we need to maybe integrate in the education curriculum things to do with helping people discover their personality traits, describe things that we call work ethics. Like that, when we talk about work ethics, a worker or a graduate knows that work ethics means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that means that if I'm to improve my work ethics, I have to be wary and address issues 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe that would actually make them better.
In effect, Shafi, you are touching the issue of yes, we want to create jobs, but even the jobs we have today, there is a danger that the people we create jobs for are not as productive to drive the economy as they should be. Productivity. And you remember me asking Grace the first question of the way people used to work.
Yes.
Is productivity an attitudinal problem? Because policy for me can't touch that. Can policy touch attitudinal problems in terms of productivity?
Well, the way I see that particular problem is really to do with the fabric of society.
Okay, fabric.
Yeah, I think we are blaming these young people, rightly, but it's deeper than that. When we were growing up, maybe the older generation was growing up, we had a very smaller middle class. Our parents were not as wealthy, and those who were few.
Absolutely.
Now you have a bigger middle class. These children have grown up splurged and spoiled. So that's why they can want a Benz after the first year of working.
It's the way they look at things.
Yeah, and they've grown up in plenty, which was not there in the past. Because right now the middle class, and they really spoil their children, and indulge. Maybe spoil is a bit harsh, but indulge their children.
And spoil also.
Then we also are always speaking about the whole corruption issue, the fabric of society. So daddy or mommy got this money easy, and so splurged on the children. Because if you've worked hard for the money, many times you don't splurge. But so it's a fabric of society where corruption is at an all-time high. These children, a lot of them, parents, there's a possibility that parents bought the exams for them and they did not earn the marks. They went through the private side of the university, so they were able to get in courses that at our time you couldn't get in because there was only government scholarship, there were only government places. So the sponsorship. So there's a lot of it is society. And I don't think it's unique to Uganda. If you look at across the world, particularly within the emerging markets where you have the younger people, the work ethic is an issue. It will come down to supply and demand. That's the only way that will sort it out.
What do you mean, Grace, by supply and demand?
Because if the jobs are limited, which they are, and you have so many job seekers, it will weed out the wrong. You will weed out the wrong characters, and they will have to learn the hard way. So society will sort its own problem. Society will sort that out. It will sort that out ultimately.
But that is a very, very, very big problem that we have in this country. So we talk about mindset change and all, but everybody has a role to play. Parents, employers, workers, government. But it is very hard somewhere for you to tell me to do something when you're doing the opposite. And that is what I think Grace is actually pointing to. That would help change the situation like 60%. And I don't know what we are really going to do, but that there is a very, very, very huge problem.
Okay. Gentlemen, Grace and Shafi, you realize we are talking about human capital here?
Yes.
The whole quality of human capital, which is a big aspect to our economy.
Absolutely.
We want to create jobs, but what kind of quality of the workforce are we focusing on? It's very important, and I don't know. I think policy can, because even at a level of, at a psychological human level, a government can deliberately prop up professionals that help people start to change attitudes from when they start, regardless of what the parents are doing. And I think some schools have those kinds of professionals on their own, who work on the psyche of these kids to show them that, look, it might be easy for you there, but once you go forward with this kind of behavior, your ability to be fruitful, to have fruition in what you are doing, is going to be encumbered. It's an attitude thing. And I think policy can affect that by encouraging schools, or even requiring them, to the extent possible, to employ people or professionals who can deal with those issues at that level, because teachers, the level of psychology teachers deal with at school when in their training does not necessarily tackle those issues. We're about to finish. Grace, let's turn back to finance. We're doing these two issues which interact.
Yes.
If I do not find money from a commercial bank, I'm a young person, I'm a job creator, and I've been trained in a vocation, I want to get money. The bank looks at me with the business plan, they say, we will not touch you. You are so risky. How can I get money? Get the kind of resources I need to create an outfit which will employ another 5 or 6 people with this kind of situation on the banks?
There are alternatives, and the alternatives, I think the reason people are struggling with this area of capital is maybe awareness around the alternatives. But you have the rise in investment clubs.
Yes.
So investment clubs is a big thing. Kenya went ahead of us in this area. The investment is huge, where like-minded people come together, put resources and invest. You have SACCOs. SACCOs is big, and I think there is potential. The Ministry of Trade Cooperative have done a good job around SACCOs. It's just to get people more aware of them. Right now, the kind of person who goes to SACCOs doesn't seem, the elite, someone have come from Makerere, have come from UCU, doesn't seem to be attracted to SACCOs yet. But we found that you find that SACCOs, churches have SACCOs.
Yes.
They've come together, church, and now church SACCOs, because churches have a wide spectrum of people, so you find the elite are able to access a church.
The softer emotional.
Yes. They can get to the church SACCO. But then you have SACCOs everywhere coming up. That's a very viable. Then in many entrepreneur families, they actually go, and the Indians have done that better than we have, but you will find that a lot of families now are coming together and giving their people capital, to start, and to start small. So I think it's more an awareness thing, but I read in the papers a lot today about SACCOs and the impact SACCOs are having. But the SACCO loan amount tends to be small. But the bigger SACCOs, you find actually are giving out loans, bigger size loans. You have your microfinance. The microfinance we have quite a number of microfinance outlets now, who are also, the interest rate is a bit on the high side, but still it's access to money. And a time will come where informally people will come together. You don't not necessarily a huge structure around investment clubs or SACCOs, but where groups of people will move away from the madness of fundraising for weddings and kwanjulas and start
for something more productive.
It's a journey, because there is money. You realize there's money when you see how much people raise for their weddings or for their kwanjulas. So there is money, and as the light bulb comes on, that is money we can tap in, where someone will say, instead of this money that has been contributed to this wedding, let's start, decorations company, so that our contribution to that wedding is decorating and we get paid. That sort of opening up our minds.
It's a mindset unexpected thing.
Yes,
also
opening up our minds. So the money, you can't find money other than in banks. It might be a little more expensive.
There's money lying there somewhere.
There is money. There is money, and it can be accessed, because when you read the stories about people in circles, you realize that they started with a small circle loan, then they increased the amount, and the government has actually every. I was
going to ask about policy and that initiative.
You notice that a lot of the time when right now, lately, the president has been going around giving money.
Yeah, I don't know whether the model works, but
and you just have to keep an open mind. Hopefully, this money gets used for the purposes. But if you'd rather give 500 million to a circle, which will reach 50,000 people, 20,000 people, than
the approach.
Yes, than put it somewhere else where it may not reach the people. So it now depends on how well organized the circles are and the accountability around it. So does the Ministry of Trade and Cooperative, the people who look after circles, what are they putting in place to say that, okay, the president was in Lira, the president was in Fort Porto, the president was in Katwe and gave this money. How have you used it? How have you, are the circle members benefiting? What is the policing around that so that it actually benefits?
The capacity, actually, because the Minister of Trade, as well as it's well intended, there's capacity. They'll tell you we can't fund and we can't do. There's the capacity issue, and that's where policy can affect to create jobs, to raise funding alternative from the banks. Because then, ultimately, even in this summit as we end, we are focused on getting money into household incomes, whichever way. The next panel will discuss agro-industrialization as the most low-hanging fruit, and now again funding will come in. Maybe again work ethics. If you have a contract to supply to Abu Dhabi, are you going to keep it? Are you going to play games? I don't know. These things are cross-cutting. Grace and Shafi, thank you very much for this discussion as a preamble to warm up and build up to our summit, which is coming at 5 p.m. until 9 p.m. tonight. We're going to discuss policy triggers for growth with jobs. That's our theme. Thank you so much. And viewers, we come to the end of this first part of our discussion. Coming on is my colleague Charles Boji with the second panel, which is going to discuss agro-industrialization. Thank you for joining us now. Stay with us and stay with us all the way until we finish the summit, discussing solutions and not lamentations for this economy.
Brings you the 13th Seeds of Gold Farm Clinic in the Eastern region that will focus on cassava, citrus, groundnuts, beef, dairy, sorghum, poultry and green gram. With key interest in post-harvest handling, value addition, sustainable land management, agribusiness aspects and economics. Come attend the Farm Clinic on Saturday, December 1st, 2018 at National Semi-Arid Resource Research Institute, Nasari, Serere, Igola at 7 a.m. Entrance is free, includes training and meals. For exhibition and more information, please call 0704 22 50 84. The Farm Clinic is brought to you by Saturday Monitor's Seeds of Gold magazine in partnership with NARO, the Microfinance Support Center, Bank of Uganda, Agriculture Business Initiative, and NTV. Seeds of Gold, smarter farming for bumper harvests.
It's party time, it's fun time. You what makes you smile, it's fun time. Just a sip on it makes me wild. Just a sip on it cools my mind. Fun time, fun all the time.
Enjoy fun time in a variety of flavors like orange,